Let's talk about sales pages. Specifically, let's talk about the 7 biggest sales page mistakes or errors that almost every page has at least 3 of these. So each one of these kills your sales. So let's fix that by getting rid of them. Here's the number one that I see over and over and over again. It's this. The headline is about your product, not about their needs. And so often it's, welcome to the name of your system, the 7-part series to fix this. And they say, well, that's talking about their needs because it's the 7-part series to fix this, and this. But what you've just done when you do that is that you've told them immediately upon their arriving on the page that this page is transactional. I'm trying to sell you something. As opposed to emotional, I get you and I can help you. And what ends up happening is when you start the relationship with transactional, then everything after that is transactional, and they're not able to go to the emotional elements that are the things that actually create the sale. So please, 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 please go look at every sales page you've created and remove the top part that welcomes them to your sales page. It's just stupid marketing. Let's get smart, because what it should be focusing on is their needs. It's probably a problem solution headline. So the second one is very related to the first, which is not addressing their needs. When a sales page is only addressing, here's what my product is, it's got all these different elements in it. It's got 5 modules and 92 videos and weekly calls. It's like, that's not what sells people. What sells people is you've tapped into their emotions. They understand that you understand them, and they are functioning from an emotional needs standpoint. And then they logically look at your program and say, this thing fits it. But if you start with transaction, you're never going to get to the emotion. And so I recommend that the top probably 4 scrolls down on a desktop are all talking about them and their needs. Possibly your story can go into that also. So the top section doesn't say a word about your product. Not a word. Okay. Number 3, I see this all the time. Dense blocks of text. So the other day I was looking at a sales page, and about 65%. So they had a nice headline with the picture, and then right below that it started in a text, and it was dense text down, and 65 or so percent of the page was this long, basically a written email translated into a web page with this long amount of text. And so I strongly suggest that what you do is you take that text material and you break it up with logical subheadings. In other words, headlines going down the page. Each headline defining its own block of information that talks about that headline. And so as people skim down that page, which is how people read sales pages, they skim them, they're seeing, here's this headline, and this section is talking about that. Then they scroll down a bit more. Here's this headline. That section is talking about that. Scroll down a little bit more. Here's this headline. And those headlines logically and emotionally move them through the process of making the sale. That's the best way to do it. And the next piece is each one of those headlines needs to be divided graphically. And so this headline can have like a different color behind that section of it. And then down below it, it drops into, here's this bullet point list of 3 key needs that they've got. And there's a picture for each one. There's text over here that describes each one. And then down below that, there's another section that now has a picture that's knocked back So it's very almost transparent, but they can tell that it's a picture. And then on top of that, you've got this text that's describing it, maybe with the box that's a little bit more opaque, so it's easy to read it. But what you're doing is you're taking each of these headlines and you're graphically breaking it out so it looks different than the section above it. What that does is it makes it so much easier to read and to grasp everything. If it's looking like a novel, no one reads it. All right, number 3, testimonial usage. I see this all the time. Number 1, almost no sales pages that I see have enough testimonials. A few of them have a lot, and that's great. But most of them have not enough. And I understand you may not have enough, but once you've got enough, may I strongly suggest that you don't put all of your testimonials in one group with them all looking exactly the same, with just testimonial after testimonial after testimonial. That gets boring really fast. And it's just like eating dinner. What we tend to do when we eat dinner is we have like 3 or 4 things on our plate, and we eat a couple of bites of this, then we go over here and eat a couple of bites of that, and then we go over here and eat a couple of bites of this, and it's like, oh, I like something crunchy. I'm going to eat this bite. And so you move. That's how we naturally work within our world, is we move from one thing to another. And testimonials should be the same way. Ideally, what you're doing is you are having multiple testimonial blocks down your page. So we're going to talk about this, and then there's going to be a block of testimonials. And then we're going to talk about that. And then there's going to be another block of testimonials. Now, ideally, so that's better. Now, the best is each of those blocks has a slightly different look. So the first one is text ones. The second one is video ones. The third one is text with a call out in it. So there are different kinds of blocks. And the next piece is each one of those addresses different needs. So when you're talking about price, right down below your price, have a block of testimonials that talk about how quickly they earned back what they paid for that particular product. When you're talking about maybe a module that talks about this particular thing, maybe you have a testimonial block that says, hey, I tried this one thing and it just revolutionized my business. So use your testimonials strategically to move them towards the sale. Number 4, buy button right at the top. Again, as soon as you put a buy button right at the top, you've got them in transactional mode because they're going to click it to see how much it costs and they're gone. You need to convince them that they need to buy it before you show them how much it costs. Now, yes, they're going to scroll down to the bottom to see how much it costs. But in the meantime, they're seeing your headlines, they're seeing your blocks go by, and they're much more likely to pause along the way and start reading as they go down that format. Next, not enough buy boxes. So you should have multiple different buy boxes on the screen. What's a buy box? It's that little section that says, here's what you get. Maybe it's got 2 options, pay $19.97 or 3 payments of $7.97, and there's a button that they can click to buy. That's a buy box. It's usually graphical box, and you should have that several times down the page, and ideally looking slightly different a couple of those times. But most people don't put in enough buy boxes. In other words, they're not asking for the sale as they go on. Number 6, not ending with the buy box. I see this all the time. For some reason, everybody got into, hey, at the end of my sales page, I'm going to put an FAQ and answer the key questions, trying to answer the objections that they've got. And I absolutely agree with that. You should be doing that. You should be answering the key objections. But at the very bottom, put another buy box. Because what you've just done when you don't do that is they hit the bottom of the page and you raise all of these objections. And yes, you try to quash them. But oftentimes the FAQ section asks a question and they have to click it to open up the description. And so what do you end up doing when you've got that section? Let's say you've got 10 questions. What you just did is you just opened up 10 objections. You didn't solve them. And then you have the bottom of the page with your legal footer. Instead of doing that, end the page with a buy box. And ideally, you may want to handle those frequently asked questions in a different way also. Number 7, deadly, deadly, deadly. If your sales page is too boring, they're gone. So late Andy Jenkins used to say, you can never be too long just too boring. And I have to tell you, I totally agree with that. My very first sales video was 94 minutes long. Andy and I worked on that together, and 125,000 people watched that video in 1 week, all the way to the end. So I can say that again. 125,000 people watched a 94-minute video all the way to the end. And it was a $3.5 million launch. Not bad. Okay. You can never be too long, just too boring. So what you have to do is you have to make sure that every word, every graphic, every single element of your page contributes to the sale. If it doesn't, rip it out. I don't care how good it looks on the page. I don't care how many hours you spent writing it, how many hours somebody spent doing the graphical design on it. I don't care if it even breaks the page's natural flow. If it's not contributing to the sale, you eliminate it. Because what ends up happening is when people get to that, they start saying, what's this here for? And they leave. There you have it. 7 top reasons why people don't buy from sales pages. Those 7 things you need to change and eliminate from your page. When you do this, you'll have higher sales as a result. What's your experience? Let me know in the chat. This is Don Crowther saying, just go do this stuff.